The Apple Watch Series 11 is an amazing watch. It's one of the best smartwatches you can buy right now, and it's also a pretty decent value. But unlike the Apple Watch Ultra 3 and the Apple Watch SE 3, it's not a huge upgrade over the previous Apple Watch Series 10. So in today's video, we're gonna find out whether the Apple Watch Series 11 is worth it. Apple Watch Series 11 sits in the middle of Apple's new Apple Watch lineup. It's the mid-priced watch starting at $399. And because it's the watch that Apple expects most people to get, it comes with the most options. First off, there are two different case sizes. There's the 42mm and the new 46mm case size, which is what I've got right here. Now I have smaller wrists, so it does feel a little bit big on my wrist, and I should have gotten a smaller band because I really go basically all the way to the end for this one. But even still, I like the bigger screen, and so I'm willing to go with the slightly oversized looking watch. But those aren't the only two options that you have when it comes to the new Series 11. In addition to the case size, you also have different material choices. So you've got the cheaper material, which is aluminum, which is the one that I have here, which is I think the one that most people will buy, or you can get the more expensive polished titanium case. Now that material starts at a retail price of $699, which is $300 more than the aluminum case, putting it a lot closer to the Ultra 3's starting price point of $799, which does seem expensive, but the material does come with some benefits like being more durable. The polished look is actually the only way that you can get a polished look on any smartwatch now. The Ultra doesn't come with a polished look. The SE doesn't come with a polished look. You can't get polished aluminum. The polished titanium Apple Watch is the only one with that sort of metallic jewelry-like look. So if you want that look, you're gonna have to spend the $699. In addition to that, you've now also got some new colors. On the aluminum, you've got silver, rose gold, and I believe space gray, which is the new one. And then when it comes to the titanium watch, you've now got natural titanium, you've got gold, and slate gray, which is the new one. So there is a huge amount of choice when it comes to picking up your new Apple Watch Series 11. The one thing you don't have to decide on though is whether your watch comes with cellular or not, because now they all come with 5G cellular. Obviously, you don't have to activate it by getting a plan. Instead, you can just use it as a standard watch and not worry about activating it and paying the monthly fee, but they're all 5G capable. That's the case with the Apple Watch Ultra 3 as well. That also comes with 5G capability and actually satellite capability. This doesn't have that, but it is nice to have the option if you decide down the road, hey, maybe I want to add this to my Verizon plan or whatever the case may be. Now, like I said, the starting price for the lowest end Apple Watch Series 11, which would be the 42mm aluminum case with the standard rubber band, it comes in at $399. However, if you want to fully spec out your Apple Watch with the polished titanium, I believe the titanium link band, and then of course get the larger case size, you can pay up to $1,049, which seems like a lot of money to pay for a mid-range Apple Watch. But hey, to each their own. If you know what you like, get what you like. If you're wearing it as an accessory, in addition to being like a health tracker, then yeah, it doesn't sound crazy to buy the more expensive wristband because you're gonna be wearing it all the time. But now let's talk about some of the changes between the Apple Watch Series 11 and the Apple Watch Series 10. The first, which is the most noticeable, I guess because you're looking at it every time you look at your watch, is the new Ion X glass with ceramic coating. Now, according to Apple, this new glass, or new ceramic coated glass, is 2 times more scratch resistant than the Apple Watch Series 10, which is a good thing. It's always a good thing to have something more scratch resistant. I've only been using this watch for about a week and a half, and I will say that I don't see any scratches, but I also didn't see many scratches on my Apple Watch Series 10, which I used for a couple months, and my Apple Watch Ultra 2, which to be fair is sapphire glass, but I haven't really had a problem with scratches on my Apple Watch for years. Now that just might be unique to me because I would like to think that I go out and travel a lot and I do active things, but realistically most of my days are sitting in a studio filming YouTube videos. So maybe I'm not banging my watch against things as much as I should be. Now in terms of the actual display, I believe it's very similar to last year's. It's still always on, it's still Retina, it's still an OLED LTPO3 wide angle display, which is nice. I mean, it looks great in really any situation. It still gets up to 2000 nits of peak brightness, which was the same as the Apple Watch Series 10 and is more than bright enough for outdoor usage. So generally the display seems unchanged from the last Apple Watch. It's really just the glass on top of the display, so if you want a more durable glass on top of your Apple Watch, then yeah, maybe go with this, or get the sapphire glass on the Ultra Watch, I don't know. The Series 11 is still water resistant up to 50 meters, it's snorkel friendly, and it's got a depth sensor which works to 6 meters, so again, great for snorkeling. Apparently a new feature is that it's now got water temperature sensing, which is nice, especially if you're doing things like snorkeling, or for most people, when you're swimming in the pool, you know, if you put your foot in, it's like, oh, it's cold. Now you can actually put it in and find out how cold it is and say to your wife, hey, you're not gonna wanna get in there, it's really cold. And she'll be like, what are you talking about? And then of course she gets in and she's like, oh, it's freezing, why didn't you tell me? I told you. I don't know, is that a conversation that every husband has with their wife? I feel like I've had that conversation like 8 or 9 different times, and I've heard other people have the conversation. Am I going crazy? I don't know. I don't think my wife watches these videos, so if you do, baby, sorry. Of course, the Series 11 still has all those sensors that you're used to on like the Apple Watch Ultra. You've got the ECG app, you've got the blood oxygen level app, you've now got hypertension sensing, which I believe will be coming to the Apple Watch Series 10 if you upgrade to Watch OS 26, which is great if you don't know if you have high blood pressure. Of course, it still has sleep apnea tracking if you wear this as your sleep tracker, so that's another plus as well. There's a lot of health features on these watches that make them genuinely useful. Now, one new feature for the Apple Watch Series 11, which is also available available on the Apple Watch SE 3 and the Ultra 3, and should be available for, I believe, the Apple Watch Series 10 with watchOS 10. I'm not totally sure about that. You've got the new sleep score, which scores how you sleep. Now, I wear my Apple Watch every single night while I'm sleeping because that's the main reason I got the Apple Watch in the first place, was to be a sleep tracker. And I've tested tons of different sleep trackers. I've tested all of the smart rings, or almost all of the smart rings, a lot of the bands, most of the generations of Apple Watches, and the Apple Watch, in my opinion, is the best overall sleep tracker that I've found so far. At least in terms of a product that I've tested for like 6 months. There are new products coming out that may be better. There are other products that I haven't tried, but for me personally, the Apple Watch has been the most consistent, the most accurate, and this new sleep score, while it does kind of simplify things a little bit, it helps. It makes things a bit more understandable for people who aren't maybe digging into the data as much as they should or could. Now, moving on to processing, you've got the new S10 chip, which is the same chip in the SE3 and the Ultra 3, so that makes deciding between these three new watches a little bit more difficult because they all kind of process things the same way. It is an upgrade over the Series 10, but is it worth upgrading your Apple Watch just for the new chip? In my opinion, absolutely not. You've got on-device Siri, which is a big plus. You don't have to connect with your phone anymore to get Siri, which is also the same for the SE3 and the Ultra 3. You've also got the same gestures that those watches have, like wrist flick and double tap. However, one more premium feature that the Series 11 has over the SE is precision tracking for iPhone. The SE doesn't have that, the Series 11 does, and so does the Ultra 3. So if you're really looking for the exact location of your watch, you can use your iPhone to literally find it down to, I think, the meter, or maybe even less than that. It's pretty impressive. It like points you in the right direction. It's nice. I don't find myself losing my Apple Watch that much because I'm either generally wearing it or I put it somewhere that I can remember it. Now, I have pretty bad ADHD, so I forget things a lot. But with my Apple Watch, I try and either wear it or put it on my charger, and that's that. I haven't had to actually find it yet, but I know that now that I've said that, I'm gonna lose it and not be able to find it for like 3 weeks. So there we go. But now let's talk about the biggest change between the Apple Watch Series 10 and the Series 11, and that is the new battery. The Series 11 now has a battery life that should last you around 24 hours compared to the 18 hours on the Series 10. And when it comes to standby mode, you now get, I think, up to 38 hours of standby mode, and I found that the battery life on this watch has been a big improvement over the previous Apple Watch. It's not like a huge noticeable improvement, but for someone who does a decent amount of traveling and someone who wears my watch for both sleep tracking and also day-to-day activity tracking, it is nice to have a longer battery life because you don't have that nighttime to charge your watch up. I find that finding times to charge my watch is kind of difficult. Now, I usually wear the Ultra 3 because the battery life is significantly longer on the Ultra 3, so I really only have to charge it up here and there. With this Apple Watch, I find myself charging it whenever I shower. Maybe if I'm hanging out with family, I'll take it off and throw it on the charger. So my use case for this watch really makes it hard for me to find charging times that are convenient because I want to be wearing this watch as much as possible to be able to track as much data as possible and to get notifications and things like that. Now, I know I said the battery life improvements are the biggest improvements on this watch, but I really think the biggest improvement from the Series 10 is the new faster charging. You can now charge up your Apple Watch Series 11 to 80% from 0 in 30 minutes, which is like a long shower. And if you just have enough time to like top off your Apple Watch before you head out, you can get up to 8 hours of battery life from just 15 minutes of charging, which is really, really impressive. Now, the 8 hours of battery life in 15 minutes is something that the SE3 also does, and of course the Ultra 3 does. The 80% in 30 minutes is faster than the 80% in 45 minutes on the SE3, so there is some difference there between the two newer watches. Siri is recording all this, so shout out to Siri for that. Compared to the Series 10, it is significantly faster. So while yes, I do plan to stick with the Ultra 3 as my main go-to watch, mainly because of the battery life, this has been more than usable, and if I had to just have this watch, I would be totally fine with that. Not only that, if you're sleeping with this watch is way more comfortable on your wrist than the Ultra 3 because the Ultra 3 has all these like sharp edges and flat faces and things you can kind of bump into or hit against your face. Not that it happens a lot, but I do find that like these edges will catch on my pillow or whatever it is. This watch is like a pebble. It's smooth, it's minimal, it's a lot more comfortable to sleep with. I would even say noticeably more comfortable. Now, if I was going for pure comfort, yeah, I'd go with the SE3 in the smallest case size, the 40mm, over anything else because it's small, it's comfy, it's lightweight. It's just a better overall sleeping experience because there's less stuff on your wrist. But yeah, if you're going for like health tracking features, and you've got to go one of these two ways, and if you're mainly just wearing it for sleep tracking, then Series 11 over the Ultra 3. So if you're confused as to which Apple Watch to get, I completely understand. They've really made the lineup of Apple Watches this year a lot more close together than it has been in the past. The SE3 is significantly cheaper, and it has a lot of the same features of the Series 11 and even the Ultra 3. The Series 11 is a small upgrade from the Series 10, but it has a lot of the same features as the Ultra 3, and the Ultra 3 is a pretty big improvement over the Ultra 2, but the only thing that differentiates the Ultra 3 from the Series 11 is the battery life, which is longer, the satellite connectivity, which, do you really need that? I don't know. And then the design. Now, I prefer the design of that watch visually. I think it looks more like a regular watch, even though it's not a round face, but there's not a lot that separates that watch from this watch in particular. So I would say if you're trying to get the best overall Apple Watch for a mid-range price, then yeah, the Series 11 is the way to go. The SE3 is great. It's hard not to recommend that watch because it's so much cheaper. It's like $150 cheaper, but at the same time, it doesn't have all of the same sensors that you've got with this watch, and the battery life is a bit worse to a point where I feel like it's not as usable for me because I wear my watch all the time. This watch has a perfect middle ground of battery life, of sensors. It's got basically all the sensors that you need. It's got a great shape. It's got tons of customizability options, different bands, different colors, different materials, and you can buy it in a lot of different price points. If you want to spend $1,000, get the most premium one. It will feel like the Apple Watch Ultra. It's that expensive feeling. Or if you just want to get a great health tracker that you can wear to bed and just looks fine, get the 42mm standard Apple Watch Series 11. It's a great watch. It's got the same sensors as the most expensive one, and again, it's got like the same sensors as the Apple Watch Ultra 3. So if you're just going for the sensors and you want to spend the least amount possible, then yeah, the Apple Watch Series 11 is the way to go. I think it's the best middle ground watch, and it's probably the best option for most people who are willing to spend a bit more money on their watch. Now, is the Apple Watch Series 11 worth it if you have the Apple Watch Series 10? In my opinion, no. I don't think you should upgrade. There are some slight improvements. Battery life improvement is probably one of the biggest ones, but unless you really need that extra couple hours of battery life, it's not worth it. That's really the biggest improvement, the faster charging and the battery life and the slightly faster chip. If you have maybe an older Apple Watch, like a Series 9, or maybe you're upgrading from an SE, then sure, yes, it is absolutely worth it. And if you don't have an Apple Watch and you're willing to spend $400 to $500, then definitely get the Series 11. This is one of the best smartwatches out there. It is the best overall Apple Watch for the price point, hands down. But hey, if you're still having trouble deciding, stay tuned for that upcoming video where I compare all three watches and tell you which watch I think is best for which person. Make sure to subscribe if you haven't yet to make sure that you see that video as soon as it drops. And also let me know in the comment section down below which Apple Watch you have and what you think of the Series 11. And as always, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you all in the next one.